Well, my name is Madeline, and I am the Community Engagement Manager for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northwest Arkansas. And today I have Keith with me. So, Keith, to start us out, can you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. My name's Keith Richards, and I am retired from my paid work, but I'm doing several volunteer pieces. I'm programming director for the community radio station in Fayetteville, KPSQ, and I'm also on the board of a couple of national organizations. One is Organic Farming Research Foundation, and the other one is actually more localized, and it's a small foundation up in Iowa. Um, so, retired and enjoying life.
Awesome, I love that. So, can you tell me a little bit more about your affiliation to Big Brothers Big Sisters?
Sure. Back in 2001, I became Big Brother. And for a long time before that, I'd heard about the organization, gosh, probably when I was in college, probably 20 years earlier. I don't know how long they've been around, but and thought, that might be something I want to do. But I always felt that I wanted to be in a real stable place in my life, and I wanted to be sure that I was going to be able to be a big brother uh, for a certain amount of time
Yeah.
before I took it on. And my life moved through a lot of iterations, and so it took me about 20 years to get to that point.
You
And
got there eventually.
yeah, I got there eventually. And in 2001, um, I was thinking back. I was 43 at that age, so that may be, I don't know. How that compares to other people who become big brothers or big sisters. But for me, that was the right age. And I was
Yeah,
ready to do it, and I was ready to make a commitment.
that's great.
So then I um, hooked up with big brothers and big sisters of Washington County and got matched up.
I love that. We have actually, I think there's kind of a big stigma around, you have to be maybe college age or in your 20s or 30s to be a big. So I love that you kind of waited until you felt ready and that you had your life kind of set before you started with that. What would you say to somebody who's considering becoming a big if they're maybe a little bit older and kind of have their life set?
Um, Once you're at that point, it may be easier. I don't know, but you got to be ready for the energy of the
Yeah.
kids. I don't have kids, so that was probably my biggest challenge.
Yeah.
And the little I was matched up with, he had some ADHD. So he was ready to run all the time, and so that's one thing to consider. But it's not a problem. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just something that like, okay, get ready for it.
Yeah. So you're talking about your little. Can you tell me a little bit more about the first time that you met your little?
Sure. Um, I, of course, had an interview with his mother first, who was a single mother with 5 boys at
Okay.
that time. And he was the middle one, and the one that had kind of been considered, I guess, the problem child, or hate to label people that way, but his mother was worried about him.
Mm-hmm.
And so she wanted a little help, a little mentoring. And so when we matched up, I think both of us were nervous,
Yeah.
and it was kind of sat on the couch and kind of tried to get some conversation going, and he probably didn't say a whole lot at that time. But then we set a date to get together, and then the first time that we went out, I don't remember exactly what we did, but it just slowly opened up. A lot of it was, what are we going to do? You going to take me here? You going to take me there? What do you, just huge expectations that
Yeah.
he had. So that was one thing to just work through that, and just slowly get to know each other and kind of know how it would go.
Yeah. So can you tell me about like a particular moment or memory from your match that kind of stands out to you?
Yeah, there's so many.
You can share a few too. That's great.
um, One of them to go along with how hyper he was when we first got matched. Um, One time we were playing frisbee, and the frisbee went up on the roof. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was kind of looking around, seeing if we could find a long pole or something for it. And while I was looking around, 2 minutes later, I looked up on the roof and he was on the roof. and
Uh,
he was like, I got it, I got it. Threw it down and worked his way back down off the roof.
he got it.
But another one is something that we did on and on for several years is going and exploring around the creeks in Fayetteville.
Okay.
And I had no idea about some of the creeks that are flowing in Fayetteville. We don't have a river that flows through the town, so I didn't realize there were so many creeks that were flowing, and that became a fun activity for us.
Okay. I love that. We have quite a few matches who have something that's like kind of special to them that they do consistently, and it sounds like you guys had that as well.
That was one of them. That was one where he loved to be out, loved to explore. We tried fishing, and
How'd that go?
I'm not a fisherman, so we never caught anything, and that was kind of boring for him. But swimming or just wading in the creek, we could talk and also explore, and he'd find a salamander or find something, and that would be really exciting, and we'd share in the experience.
Yeah, yeah. So can you tell me about something that was maybe surprising to you about your match or surprising to you about your little?
Um, I think I had no idea what I was getting into. When it comes to uh, a child, he was 9 at the time that we were matched, and then of course even into his teenage years, a child who comes from lower resources and um, who is of a culture that's looked down on in our country. Just how that is so different in life from my life, and to be able to see that and get to really feel that um, was probably one of the biggest eye openers for me, and was really something that was such a valuable lesson for me. I mean,
Yeah.
I really feel like that was something that I was meant to see and experience, um, but just to see how that shapes you and how that shaped him, and then to try to work with him, and try to balance that out. That was probably, I don't know if that's surprising, but that was something that was the biggest eye opener.
Yeah, yeah, maybe something you weren't expecting to get out of
Exactly.
being a part of Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Yep.
So, can you tell me a little bit about your relationship with your little now?
Sure. Now it's been, what is that, 23 years since 2001. And uh, he's in his 30s now, and he has 2 of his own children, and he is just remarried in a wonderful marriage, and he has 4 stepchildren.
Wow.
And so we have always stayed in touch. I was in his first marriage that his 2 children are from. I was his best man in
Wow.
his wedding.
What a
And
special experience.
it's very special. I mean, for him to ask me that, brought tears to my eyes.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And he never knew his dad,
Okay.
and his dad just was absent in his life. And later on, his mom remarried, and he had a stepdad. So, but he always says that he doesn't miss his dad. He doesn't feel bad about that because he had 2 dads, and his stepdad and me.
Wow.
And so that kind of is our relationship. He's down in Fort Smith, and I'm in Fayetteville. And he texts, and we call, and once in a while we get together. And when he comes to town and sees his family, he'll stop and see me. So, and then now with his kids, his daughter is 8 years old and his son is 4, and I've he's had them over and I've played with them and they've gotten to know me too. So that's fun too.
Yeah. So, what would you say has been the most rewarding part of being a big to you? It sounds, you've really seen him through so many different stages of life.
Hmm. Um, just that relationship, and just like I mentioned, to have that long-term relationship and have that depth of relationship is definitely the most rewarding. Also, knowing, even though I look back and say, oh, I wish I would have done this, I wish I would have done that, for the most part, I don't look back that way. And for the most part, my partner and wife and other people around me just say, look what you've done, look what you've done. And so I know it's been special. And of course, he says it's special. Um, so it's all been rewarding, and it's been so rewarding. I mean, I don't know if I can express it in words.
Yeah. Yes, we have, so many bigs who share, that they didn't necessarily foresee themselves walking out of this experience, with it feeling so rewarding to them. And I think a lot of bigs walk out feeling like almost the relationship was just as powerful and important for them as it was for their little. And I know that's something that you've kind of shared. So,
Yeah, that's definitely the case for me. Even though my little says that it was such, it's special, and I'm one of his dads now. Um, like I mentioned earlier, to see life through his eyes and his experience, it helps me understand the world better. So I feel like I have greater empathy with people around me, but yet I've gained a best friend too, and I've had this other best friend of another generation that is totally like unexpected.
sometimes you find like the most unexpected relationships come out of kind of just nowhere.
Yeah. One more thing about that.
Of course.
I've also become friends with his whole family, of course, and his 4 other brothers, and also his mom and his stepdad. And his mom, unfortunately, passed away earlier this year, uh, but we also had a very good relationship, and his stepdad and I have a very good relationship, and that's been a wonderful reward too. I didn't expect that at all.
Yeah. It's so important, I think, for bigs to have a relationship with the parent and have that open line of communication to be able to talk about what's going on and how everyone can best help the child.
Yeah. That's one thing. If people are listening and they're looking for advice, one thing that we would always do, I think his mom wanted to do, and it was definitely uh, helpful for me, is when I'd drop him off. Usually we'd go out in the evening. Sometimes it was an afternoon. I'd drop him off, and so it'd often be bedtime. So, okay, send him off to bed. And then we'd go out on the porch, his mom and I, and sit and talk, maybe for another hour, and just
Wow.
talk about what was going on in the family, what had been going on in school, and just what was going on in her life, too, which helped me understand how it was affecting um, my little brother.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wonderful that you had such a great relationship with his parents as well.
Yeah.
Um, so you're a wonderful mentor. So I would have to guess that you've probably had some mentors throughout your life that have really helped you. So can you tell me a little bit about a mentor or two that you've had and how they kind of shaped you into the mentor that you
Ooh, that's a good question.
are?
I have had many mentors, and I've actually been thinking about them a lot because a couple have passed on in this past year. And um, One was my dad, who just continually said things to me, and maybe I didn't listen to him when I was young a lot, but those things stuck, and I find myself um, even now, after he passed on about 8 years ago, and even now just hearing exact phrases that he said to me that are so important that help guide my life. Um, and just having his love, even though he may have not said that word that much, but just knowing that that was there and that he had my back, um, that that I think gave me a great example, to what I should be to a young person.
Wow, what a great answer. I'm sure, like, just because of the longevity of you and your little's relationship, he knows that you're always going to be there for him and have his back. And
Yep.
that's such an important feeling, to always feel like someone is in your corner and someone is always rooting for you. And it changes lives
Yeah.
to have that.
Yeah,
So,
I saw that. One example of that is one time before we went out, he and I, when he was real little, his mom, in a pretty sharp tone, almost yelling at him, said, "Now don't give Keith any problems," and um, and he just looked at her and he said, "I never have any problems with Keith," and that was really touching that
yeah.
that he felt that way.
Yeah. He just saw you as such a safe person
Yeah,
in his life.
yeah.
So what would you say? You've given a few pieces of advice, but what would you say to somebody who's considering becoming a big right now?
Um, think about it if you're ready for it. If you're ready to make the commitment, I'm sure that other people will say this too, and the folks at Big Brothers will say this, but make sure you're ready to be able to give back, and you're in that place. Um, and if you are, then gosh, don't wait. Go go do it,
Now's the time.
because yeah, now's the time, and there's such a need. I mean, that's what I saw um, with my little brother, is that, I mean, he had friends that eventually we'd do things with too, and his brothers and others. Um, I feel like they all needed a big brother.
Yeah.
There were so many people just in our community who I've met, and I'm sure all over. So, um, you know, think about it and get ready, but please do it.
Um, why do you still continue to support Big Brothers Big Sisters? You're not a current big, but you're here doing this, so you're supporting us.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of about Big Brothers Big Sisters sticks out to you?
Um, One, that need that I talked about.
Yeah.
There are so many um, young young people, young children, in our world who, if they just have one other stable person, one other stable adult, one other adult in their life, it can change their lives. So that's wonderful, and I feel like Big Brothers is a great avenue for doing that. You know, you can you can probably do it on your own through a church, or you can do it through another organization, or you can try to help through an athletic activity, or there's many ways to do it. But Big Brothers has such a good program that's proven over and over and over for a long time, um, that um, that affects so many people, and it's a program that gives you support, and then lets you go and do it. And that's at least that was my experience. So I want to support it all I can, and be able to make sure that this program continues for other people.
Well, I appreciate that, and we all appreciate that. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. We've gotten to talk a lot about your little and your experience, but is there any other stories or anything that you'd want to share?
Mm.
I'm sure you might have a few.
Yeah, I could tell stories all afternoon about my experience. Um, Phew.
And now that I put you on the spot,
Yeah,
I'm sure
you
none
put
are
me on the
coming to
spot on that
mind.
one.
I think so much about being a big, and we even say this is it takes little to be big. It's going out with your little and playing in the creek
Yeah,
once
yeah,
a month and catching salamanders and talking.
yeah,
So
yeah. It really is. It's just, you know, letting down your, being, well, I'm such an adult all the time, and learn to play,
yeah,
is a big part of it, especially for someone like me who doesn't have kids. Um, letting go and being able to roll with the moment. I mean, there are so many times where um, that I would have a certain expectation, and that expectation wasn't met, but it turned out even better. Um, like one time we went out to a farm, to a friend of mine, and because I work with farmers, I are used to. Um, I know a lot of farms, and I thought that'd be a good opportunity for my little. And we went out, and they had watermelon, and I thought, oh, this is going to be a fantastic experience. Going to have fresh watermelon, and going to be out, and we can go to the creek and everything. And it turns out that my little doesn't like watermelon.
the best laid plans.
Yep. So, but he still had a wonderful time.
Good, I'm glad.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, whoops, sorry, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Keith, for sharing your stories, and we so appreciate everything that you do. It was wonderful to kind of talk to you and hear more about your little and your experience with Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Well, thanks, Madeline. I appreciate that you invited me on and give me a chance to talk about such a wonderful experience. And thanks for everything you do.
Of course.